It's words about other words. It's a podcast.
Hey, we're the Word Nerds. This is our Eco edition where we're all about words that begin with eco.
Words, nerds, together at last.
Ocean levels rising, the crashing destruction of forests, the whooshing sound of carbon dioxide invading the atmosphere. If these keep you up at night, affect your daily life, or give you panic attacks, you could be suffering from eco-anxiety. Hi, I'm Leanna. We're the Word Nerds. This is the Eco Edition. Eco-anxiety is the impending sense of doom over our world's ecological system. The extreme worry about the future of our world due to man-made problems and climate change. A term closely related to solastalgia, meaning the psychological disorders that affect native populations after destruction of their territory, whether that be man-made or by climate. While the term has only been around since 2007, psychologists around the world have studied the rise and effects of eco-anxiety, relating it back to natural disasters like the fires in Australia or climate change. A majority of people who suffer from eco-anxiety have witnessed or been a part of these natural disasters. We need to be aware that eco-anxiety will rise across the globe with each new natural disaster. Greta Thunberg has made headway. She's taken to standing in front of world leaders demanding that they take action for the state of our ecosystem.
So when I was 11, I became ill. I fell into depression. I stopped talking and I stopped eating. In 2 months, I lost about 10 kilos of weight. Later on, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, and selective mutism. That basically means I only speak when I think it's necessary. Now was one of those moments.
While Greta's anxiety is only the spark that lit the fire, we young adults are demanding action.
We are doing this because in this crisis, we will not be bystanders. We are doing it because we want the people in power to unite behind the science.
Eco-anxiety has risen drastically around the globe over the past 3 years. Thousands of people feel like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. Perhaps if we each lowered our carbon footprint. Perhaps if we took the bus instead of taking our cars everywhere. Perhaps if we each only used reusable bags over plastic. Perhaps. The thing about anxiety is that we can go through every instance of controllable and uncontrollable situations, but that's not going to make it better. The truth is, whatever we choose to do, not one of us is responsible for the crises of the world. Not one person can save it. If we work together, if we work with big companies and our own governments, we might be able to create a world worth living in.
And of course, any type of anxiety can ultimately lead to some sort of rash action. And eco-anxiety is no different. Our next word is ecoterrorism. Now, this is a term that was first coined in 1983 in an article by activist Ron Arnold. He defined it as the deliberate destruction of the artifacts of industrial civilization in the name of environmental protection. In his article, he referred to things like the burning of a bridge accessing a national recreation area in Montana, and the firebombing of a herbicide-spraying helicopter in Oregon, the bombing of a hydro substation in BC, and the tossing of an oil company's survey stakes into a creek in Wyoming. There's also another word very similar to ecoterrorism called ecotage, and this is a portmanteau of eco and sabotage, and it simply refers to the specific act of destroying equipment that causes harm to the environment. So the act of ecotage fits comfortably within the world, let's say, of ecoterrorism. So let's have a go at the word ecoterrorism itself. The first person to use the word terrorism was Thomas Jefferson in 1795. He used it to describe the political philosophy of those who advocated for the reign of terror during the French Revolution, a time when public executions were the norm. The word terror didn't deviate all that far from the original Latin word, terror, spelt Terrere, and it was just a verb that meant to frighten. But it's interesting that the word terrorism has its origins in a revolution, because that's really the mindset of those who advocate for ecoterrorism. In his book, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, Andreas Malm argues that climate activism must radicalize itself past mere civil disobedience in order to make any significant changes regarding pollution. He points to movements like the suffragettes, who did employ violent tactics such as arson. They pressured lawmakers to finally make real, meaningful legislation that benefited the world. Malm notes, though, that not a single person was ever harmed by the suffragettes, and that violence towards people is not at all necessary in order to properly conduct ecoterrorism. When discussing ecoterrorism, the question really is raised whether or not sabotage or breaking the law is necessary to solving the ongoing ecological disasters of today. Are people and politicians too passive when attempting to address the climate disaster? Is a more radical approach necessary? It's something that would be interesting to debate, though just to err on the side of caution, this podcast would not advocate for the breaking of any laws in the name of climate justice. And that's all from the Word Nerds Eco Edition. Please join us in our next episode, where we will be looking at the words ecosexuality and ecotourism.